Is that correct?
Well, we actually replaced we had asphalt ones down. We just resurfaced a portion well, we resurfaced all of Red Mill, and a portion of Midhurst, basically up to Foxford. So when we replaced the speed cushions there, we actually put bolt down ones there,
Okay, thank you.
so.
Any further questions or comments? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say yes.
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 Anybody opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Eric. All right, the next item is 4C. It's a request for approval of plan to extend a sidewalk along the west side of Everett Road from the trail connection coming out of Split Rail Farm subdivision to the Fox Run Greenway. Town of Farragut applicant.
Over the years, we have promoted the construction of sidewalk and greenway in our subdivisions and along our roads. The intention, of course, is to come back in later to attach connections to try to form a network of pedestrian facilities so you can pretty much walk wherever you want to. It takes a long time to put that together, but it does explain why occasionally we'll have greenways that just end. In this case, this is a connector from Split Rail Farm to Fox Run subdivision. It's along the western side of Everett Road. It's a very straightforward project, but the terrain is a little difficult. We do have LDA Engineering with us tonight. If you have any questions, I want to turn it over to them. Lincoln Fugel is here. Go ahead, Lincoln.
Good evening. My name is Lincoln Fugel from LDA Engineering. We're the ones that are doing the design on this project. This connector running from the Fox Run Greenway down to the Split Rail subdivision is proposed to be a concrete sidewalk that is next to the road. It's about 7.5 feet for the majority of the distance, but you can see right there in the center, it narrows down to 6 feet. Now, this doesn't match the character of other walkways, greenways in the area exactly, and that is because of the hillside that it's right up against. If you go further down Everett Road, you'll see we've got 8-foot paved, asphalt paved walkways with like a 3-foot green strip in between the drive path of the vehicles and the walkway. If we were to put that in this section right here, we would be tearing out all of those trees and then cutting into the hillside. It'd be an enormous amount of dirt and rock that'd have to be removed. So to get away from that, to avoid that amount of construction, we propose doing a sidewalk, concrete sidewalk with a curb, a post curb, as kind of a protective barrier between pedestrians and vehicles. A little bit wider where we can do it. That's why you've got the 7.5 foot width for the majority of it. But right there in the center where it gets really tight, we've got it proposed to be narrowed down to about 6 feet wide through that area. We did contact utilities. As you can see, there's a couple of gas markers that are on that side of the road. There is a gas line that runs right through the middle of this project. We've coordinated with the gas utility, and they looked at this plan, and they don't see any need to relocate as part of this project. And as far as we know, there's no other utility conflicts with the project. So, pending your questions, that's the project.
Before we go any further, I need a motion.
Move to approve plans for construction of a sidewalk along Everett Road from Split Rail Farm subdivision to Fox Run Greenway at the north side of Fox Run subdivision.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is anybody signed up, Mark?
No, sir.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions for?
I'm just glad to see another piece of the puzzle getting completed.
Yeah, I'm pleased too, because that's a dangerous spot. It's pretty much impossible to walk, and if you're biking, you got to kind of speed up to make that a short passage from the existing sidewalk down to the other one. So it's great to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, if you're biking, you better have a rear view mirror to make sure.
Any other comments, questions? All right, if no other questions or comments, it's time to vote. All in favor of the motion, say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next item is 4D, a request for approval to extend fiber cable for Comcast along the east side of Concord Road, south of Kingston Pike, to provide service to 130 Concord Road. Comcast applicant.
Yeah, this project is a little bit of a piggyback on a project that came before you all previously along Concord Road, the east side from Kingston Pike. And this is only a very few feet of an extension, but this one is basically half-inch fiber cable and a new 2-inch conduit that would service the business at 130 Concord Road. This work will be conducted by Source Broadband Services. They have a surety with the town to cover any damages that may occur. And the staff recommends approval of this utility extension, subject to obtaining right-of-way permit through the engineering department.
Move to approve.
Second.
Is there anybody, oh, yeah,
With subject tos.
with subject to? Okay, we have a motion and a second.
No one signed up.
Nobody signed up? Anybody here from the applicant? Mark?
I don't know. They were aware of it. I made them aware of it,
Okay.
so I'm not sure.
Any comments or questions from the commissioners?
This is just a slight extension, so I can see why they didn't show up.
Okay. All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say yes. Yes. Opposed? No, it's motion passes unanimously. Oop. All right. Next item, 4E, a request for approval to extend fiber cable for Comcast along the east side of Brookline Street from Kingston Pike to Neptune Drive and along a portion of the north side of Neptune Drive. Comcast applicant.
Yeah, this project involves about 2,700 linear feet of half-inch fiber cable in a new 2-inch conduit. It'll be on the east side of Brookline Street from Kingston Pike. You can see on this slide, we're starting at Kingston Pike on the north end, then going along the east side of Brookline all the way down to Neptune, and then going out on the north side of Neptune a short distance. There also will be a bore under Brookline to service Pinnacle Bank. That's the address at 241 Brookline. And this is kind of an overview of the project. It doesn't show the bore. That is something they need to update on their plans. That would service the Pinnacle Bank there in the lower part of the screen. But it's a pretty big project. Most of Brookline Street is affected by this. So the staff has reviewed this, and we do recommend approval of the project. This work would also be conducted by Source Broadband. And as I mentioned earlier, they have surety with the town. We do subject the staff's recommendation to a revised plan. They had some old notes on there that referenced open trench, and that's not what their intent is, and that's not what we allow. So we're just take those references out so that it's clear it's all directional bore. And then also to show in more detail that open bore, or not the bore under Brookline to service the Pinnacle Bank. And those two things, along with obtaining the right-of-way permit from the engineering department, the staff recommends approval.
Move to approve
Let's make sure we get those three subject twos in there.
with these three subject tos.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Anybody signed up to speak on this?
No, sir.
And the applicant's not here?
Not
Same
to
applicant
my
as the
knowledge.
previous one. Any comments, questions from commissioners?
Yeah, I've got one.
Go ahead.
Mark, is there other utilities in this area that have to be marked?
Yeah, they'll have to coordinate with utility. That's standard anywhere, anytime you do any of this. So
So
they're
it's
gonna
not
have
like
to-
it's a brand-new lay?
It is a brand-new conduit, 2-inch conduit, yeah.
But I mean, this area has got other?
Yeah, there's
Okay.
other utilities
Okay.
there, and they'll definitely have to coordinate with all that, and that'll be part of what we'll look at and coordinate with them as part of the right-of-way permit,
Okay,
along with traffic control.
okay, you mean for engineering to do?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? All right, we have a motion with 3 subject twos, and we have a second. All in favor of the motion, say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item, 4F. This is discussion on a request to amend the Farragut Code of Ordinances, Appendix A dash zoning, Chapter 3, Section 12, General Commercial District C1, subsection F, mixed-use town center. 3 building facade requirements to provide for 75% on the net facade area of new buildings that are part of existing development on the same parcel, rather than 75% face brick on each building elevation. The Architecture Collaborative applicant. This was originally here, it is a discussion item. It was originally here because we had thought that might be voting on something after it, which is part of this project. But for tonight, it's just a discussion item.
Yeah, so this is related to a new building that'll be proposed at the south intersection of West End Avenue and West Point Drive. It's a little bit hard to see on the screen, but let me see if I can point it out here. But you have the existing West End Center that's on the west side of West Point Drive, or West End Avenue. And then this new building is here at that intersection of West Point Drive and West End Avenue. And you have, part of the older West End Center over here on the east side of West End Avenue as well. But this is the building in question, and they do have a site plan that they're working on. They're still trying to work out the stormwater detention, and that was kind of a major item, so it just wasn't quite ready for this meeting as far as the site plan goes. But we did want to go ahead and get the commission's feedback on the building materials, because of course, the West End Center, the buildings predate the mixed-use town center designation for this area. So the materials on those buildings does not even come close to meeting our face brick requirements. So if you go into our zoning ordinance in the C1 mixed-use town center section, it talks about new buildings, which this would be, adhering to the town center design requirements. And that basically stipulates that each of the 4 building elevations basically have to maintain 75% face brick. So obviously the building that's out there is well below that, as I mentioned earlier. But if you look in the architectural design standards that are separate from the zoning ordinance, they talk about in the town center sub area the ability to take the net facade area, and as long as you have 75% face brick on the 4 elevations averaged, then it would be consistent with those standards. And that's kind of what we do outside of the town center, except we don't have the face brick requirement outside of the town center. We let people average the masonry on the 4 building elevations. So the applicant is wanting to have that flexibility so that they can kind of blend the new building in better with the existing building, so it doesn't look completely opposite from what the older building is. They do show kind of a facade that blends in more with the older building on the south elevation of the building here, kind of facing the parking lot. But then on the other 3 elevations, it's almost all 100% face brick. it's a little bit hard to see on those images, but the other three, so that if you did take the average that's provided for in the design standards, they would be able to meet the 75% face brick. But they're just wanting that flexibility to be able to do that and not have to have each elevation 75% face brick. So that would require a change to our zoning ordinance because it is provided for in the zoning ordinance currently, and that is a more strict requirement, so the stricter requirement applies. And so that's really the nature of the request. When we talked about this at the staff developer meeting with the applicant, I think the staff is in support of this flexibility. I think the communication that was received from people that were there, I think we're open to this. We understand trying to have a little bit of continuity between the new building and the existing building to some extent, but still having that high face brick requirement that we expect in our mixed-use town center. So that's kind of an overview of what this involves, and I know the applicant is here if you have specific questions for them, but again, we just wanted to get the feedback from you all so that if you are open to this approach, that we could put this in some ordinance language and bring it back to you for the December meeting.
Before we bring the applicant up, do we have anybody signed up, citizens?
No, I do not.
Okay. Can we have somebody from the applicants? Thank you.
I just want to say I'm very comfortable with this. We have had we've changed our brick requirement between, we used to own Anytime Fitness, and trying to work around that. Those buildings came out, I think, as well as could be expected for our brick requirement. But I think it's very important to have a cohesive look, particularly with this building. So the way it's juxtapositioned. I think also, because you're going to have traffic running behind it, the idea that you have that, the back of the buildings look nice, because it does you do see some traffic along that road. So I think this is a perfect compromise for the existing buildings. We know that this is going to happen over in Village Green as well, and they have a very old style that we kind of need to make sure that we're thinking about that when we do these new buildings that will come up eventually at Village Green as well. So that's all I have.
I'd echo the same thoughts. I think it's a good idea to have the flexibility to match the existing buildings to be compatible. Thank you.
Anything you want to add from the last time we've talked?
No, I don't think so. I think there's been positive comments, and we've really tried to make this building look good on all the sides, because of how visible it is. I think this is a good compromise going forward, some other developments. So I think it would be good, and we appreciate you guys' consideration on this.
I like what you've done, and I think, I ditto what Louise has said. So any other comments or questions for the applicant?
I support this as well, and I appreciate the glazing that you guys put on the back of the building. I think it'll look nice driving down, what is that, West Point Drive?
Yes.
Yeah, so appreciate that, yeah.
Well, we knew this was going to happen eventually in one area or the other, and I think trying to match it up, like Alderman Pop said it, or Louise Baldwin said, it was kind of a deal where in Anytime Fitness, where you had the first building and the second building and then the third building, we had to try to match that up, and then I think we really just need to try to do it here as well, so.
Got enough information?
I think so, yeah. I'm hanging out for item G.
All righty.
Well, item
So-
G was postponed because
Yeah.
the site plan's not ready on
We're not
that
going
one.
to discuss that tonight.
Yeah.
Could we have just an open discussion about some of those issues? That way we can kind of get those out there and try to figure those out a little easier.
We probably, for that, since it was a lot of staff stuff, you probably need to set up a meeting with the staff and just go through them. Because the stormwater detention, we need to talk through that.
Was that the main, is that the
That
only
was one of
stick-
the big things, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, because it was to be determined, and we can't bring it to the planning commission when you don't have that determined.
okay,
So, but yeah, we'd be happy to meet with you all.
okay.
and-
We'll
and
set that up
Go
as soon
through
as-
all of them, so that the deadline's December 1st for the
Right.
resubmit, so when you do resubmit, we want to make sure it's ready.
Yes, absolutely,
Yeah,
okay.
So, yeah, that's fine.
Just a procedural thing, okay.
Since this was postponed, the commissioners don't have all that information in our packet, so we'd like to review it beforehand if we were going to
Sure,
discuss it.
sure, understood. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you need these back? Okay.
All right. Next item is 4H, discussion of public hearing on a site plan for Lakes Edge Retail Center, 11328 and 11334 Campbell Lakes Drive, 1.04 acres, zoned C2. Seth Schweitzer, applicant.
This property, we had a concept plan maybe 2 or 3 years ago for a restaurant here, and it really never came to fruition, so this one is a basically almost 7,000 square foot retail, potentially restaurant mixture building that would be at the south intersection of Campbell Lakes Drive and Lakes Edge Drive. This particular site is bisected by 2 pretty large transmission line easements that really makes it difficult to kind of develop, and it's probably why it's one of the few undeveloped tracks in the Parkside Drive area. But when we did adopt more flexibility and setbacks for buildings that were either in line or in front of parking, this really helps this site because they're able to bring the building up closer to the road and have the parking beside it and behind it. And that really, for this site where you have all those transmission line easements, really probably was the big thing that made this doable, a doable site. So as far as the site goes, the stormwater detention for this one is actually pre-designed, and it's designed to go kind of to the south in this regional detention area. But they are including, to meet our low impact development requirements, all this shaded area would be permeable pavers. So that's what they're doing with that. As far as the building goes, it's around 80% masonry. It's a mixture of brick and stone. I think the architect has a color and materials board, if you all want to look at that. And he can pass those around or bring it up to you. As far as the staff's review, we had 11 subject tos, and actually I'm going to add one more because it didn't get picked up in the comments, and that is providing an erosion control letter of credit in an amount determined by the town engineer. So that would be comment number 12 as far as the subject tos. If you want me to go through those, or if you have any questions about any of those specifically, either me, I can bring them up, or the applicant's architect and engineer are both here to answer more detailed questions.
I think, all 11 have to be in the record. So do we want to discuss that first, or do we want to bring up any citizens?
And we don't have any citizens that have signed up for this one.
Okay.
Okay, Mark, you want to read them in then,
Yeah, let me just,
please?
We aren't sure what tenants will be in this building. We are already very close to coverage at 68, 69%. Number 4 on the list, we're not comfortable doing at this point, and I don't know that there's space to do it in the first place. I'd like to eliminate that because we don't know what type of restaurant will go in there, if they're really wanting outdoor seating. And if we do that, my understanding is we probably will go over the 7,000 square feet, which then requires a sprinkler system throughout the building. and there's no place to get additional square footage to compensate for that sprinkler system.
Well, what he's talking, let me read those comments in first, and then we'll talk about that number 4. So the comments, the first one was that the plan set, and this is normal a lot of times with initial plan sets, that it says not for construction only. Well, obviously, the final site plan set would have to be for construction and then be properly signed and sealed and dated. Then coordinate with the commercial plans reviewer and fire marshal and make sure, in terms of the building, that they have what they need on the final submittal. I think they included most of that information with the revision 1. The cover sheet for this project needs to account for all the sheets that are in the submittal. That's another pretty standard item that we typically see. I think they only show the civil sheets currently. Just ensuring that there's enough landscape space between the building and the parking lot to meet our requirements in the landscaping ordinance. Looks pretty tight. They may have to, kind of manipulate that a little bit to get some of that square footage in there. But that would be part of what we would look at with the landscape plan that they'll have to bring before the Visual Resource Review Board. The 4th comment is what Mr. Schweitzer was talking about, and that was, since a restaurant is envisioned in part of the building, please plan for and show a designated outdoor seating area. The reason that this is a comment in here is that along Parkside Drive in particular, a lot of those tenants, multiple tenant buildings like Parkside Station and Parkside Station West, they ended up having restaurants in some of them, and they really, in some cases, they weren't able to have outdoor seating, and the restaurant really wanted it, but it just wasn't thought about or planned for on the front end. So that's kind of what, we're trying to think about, is if you potentially could have a restaurant, having some outdoor seating is really important, and we saw the value of that during COVID in particular, to not, to have that option to be able to spread out and be outside. So that's what that comment is about. The 5th comment is just making sure all the sidewalks are referenced as 5 feet. There's a couple of places where they show that they're 4 feet wide. The minimum is 5 feet. The compact car parking signs just show where those are to be located. They do have a detail on those in the plan set. There was a couple of things dealing with the permeable pavers, just coordinating with the town's engineering staff on specifics on the permeable pavers and where they transition to the regular stormwater system, and just a little bit more detail on how that will work. Addressing a couple of minor notes that the stormwater coordinator had on the erosion control sheet, which is sheet C 4.0. On the utility sheets, one of the standard comments that we have on site plans is that First Utility District needs to acknowledge approval of the final plan set. That's pretty normal. If there's going to be gas for this building, they need to show the location, how it's going to get there. Same with electricity. I know there'll be electricity for this, but there was no specific indication of where that was coming in to the building and from where on site, if there's any transformers and that kind of thing. And if they did have a restaurant, to just be thinking about the grease trap location. It's another issue that we've run into, and we try to make people aware of it so that they can pre-plan ahead of time. The rooftop units appear to be screened by the building that they're serving, which is consistent with our requirement. Maybe just adding a note on the plan to acknowledge that they know that they have to be screened so that they're not visible from adjacent properties or rights-of-ways, because you got 2 public streets there real close to the building. And depending on the size of the rooftop units, we've also learned that sometimes what the rooftop unit was shown on the architectural sheet that was approved wasn't the size that got installed, and the one that got installed had to have some additional modification to screen it. So, and then the back of the building facing Lakes Edge Drive, it's a little bit hard to see, but it's this second elevation here. It just needs maybe it could be faux windows or just something to kind of break that up a little bit more and make it a little bit more inviting, particularly since it's along a public street and the building is so close to the road. So that's, and then finally, the last thing was just, and it wasn't in the packet originally, is just having the erosion control letter of credit in an amount to be determined by the town engineer. I think he already gave them an amount. It just wasn't included on the subject twos originally. So that's the subject twos for this site plan.
Before we ask for a motion, I think maybe we should have some discussion from the commissioners. Anybody want to start?
I've got two comments. One kind of picks up where Mark Shipley left off regarding the grease trap. So when I'm looking at the utility plan shows that the sanitary sewer, which looks like its gravity, is on the north side of the building up along Lake's Edge. And I applaud the designers for being able to creatively, that still doesn't sound right, creatively, thank you, work with the site because it is a challenging site. But I just do want to point out one thing. The only logical location, if you had a restaurant come to you in 99 out of 100 restaurants, First Utility District's going to require an external grease trap. And the only exception would be maybe a coffee shop that didn't do any kind of food preparation. But the only place to put that grease trap is going to be in the right-of-way, and you can't put a grease trap in the right-of-way. It's part of the private utility of the building. So just keep that in mind as you're marketing this. If you maintain this particular design, you're going to have a real challenge with the restaurant trying to get a grease trap. I actually don't think there's any room to do it unless you scooted the building forward to make some more room behind the building, because that's where your sewer is. So you're going to have to get really creative. So anyway, I've been enough on that. Just word of warning, the grease traps and the days of doing the internal grease traps inside the restaurant are over. First Utility won't even allow those grease traps anymore, the little small grease traps that go into like the little 3-compartment sinks. My next observation was I cannot for the life of me find the bike rack. And we do require a bike rack. We encourage our citizens and folks that have the ability to either shop there or work there to take their bike to work. I may be missing it. I've looked on all the sheets, and maybe it's on a sheet that I don't have, but maybe, Mark, if you could point out the bike rack for me? I think it's missing. Okay, it is missing. So, well, it really needs to be in the subject twos. Probably under 7,000 square feet, you're probably only required to have one bike rack. Very simple. Should be fairly easy, but you do need to plan it now, and we do need to get that as part of the comments tonight.
Sort of pushing to get this finalized and in to submit, and that was one of the small things that just got overlooked.
Well, it's not necessarily a small thing, because all of a sudden if you try to after the fact, especially when you're shoehorning in on a site like this, the next thing you know, you're taking out landscaping and then you're changing your impervious surface calculations. So it could really be a slippery slope that you don't want to go down. So you just need to think about it now and where would be a good location for that bike rack. Anyway, so besides the grease trap and the bike rack, and making maybe some exterior improvements to the back of the building, trying to make it instead of it looking, as we really don't want it to look like the back of a building, even though that is your service entrance. And it wouldn't surprise me if you get some deliveries back there and things like that. And obviously, you got to have it for egress. But being that's a very prominent view and elevation of your building, do need to maybe spend some time. I don't know if you noticed that the other applicant before you had added some glazing on the back of your building. Even if you have some glazing, some glass doors back there, and you tint them, at least it looks a little bit more inviting. Even if you don't use it for a public entrance, it looks it just keeps the back of your building from just looking like the back of a building. So anyway, and congratulations on coming up with a good plan on a tough site. So
Noah, can you walk us through why, what your concerns are about the placement of a grease trap? Because I see space there, but apparently there's issues with,
Well, it is, so the building is pushed pretty darn close to the setback. I can't really tell where the right, and there may be room in there.
okay, so that it can't be in the setback,
No, it can be in the
obviously.
setback. I don't think there's an issue with putting it in the setback. It just can't be in the right of way. And see if I can
The
find one
right
of
of
the.
way is gonna be 20 feet from the building.
Yeah, so you know what, even
They've
with,
got
so
20
you've got a,
feet of
what, you've got a
space.
you've got a 5-foot sidewalk back there is what I'm guessing?
Yes.
That's
So
right.
that leaves you 15 feet. Actually, you might be able to get a grease trap to fit back there.
Yeah.
You might actually have some room to get it, because that's really the only location it could go is what we're calling the back of the building or the north elevation of the building. And being that you're,
Thoughtful about how
Yeah.
you're going to service that grease trap. If that's-
well, you can do it in grass areas, you can do it in asphalt. You know, basically, the top of the grease trap, for all intents and purposes, kind of looks like the top of a manhole. And so you can service it, you know, you can drive over it with a vehicle, you can drive over it with a lawnmower. But there are a couple compartments that go to the grease trap. You've kind of got the kind of the solid side and the liquid side, if you will.
Yep.
And, but just do kind of think about that, about how you're gonna accommodate. Obviously, we'd love to have you to have a restaurant in there. And, but I can tell you right now, like I said, 99% of the time, you're gonna trigger a grease trap. And then also, you know, your other things like your hood and exhaust system and fire suppression and so
Yes.
forth. So just kind of think about those things. Hopefully, maybe while you're working on this, you can do some pre-marketing and kind of figure out who your tenant's gonna be. And the other thing that I can warn you against is you probably don't have enough parking to put 2 restaurants in there, because their peak times all hit together. We've had some shopping areas around town that when they get multiple restaurants, it just turns into a parking debacle. So maybe one restaurant, again, we're not trying to tell you how to do your business, we're just trying to tell you how to keep your tenants happy and keep the customers of the tenants happy, which means the tenants can pay the landlord.
There's a calculation in there where we can only use certain amount of the square footage for a restaurant.
Okay.
To allow for that parking to work with this building. So the whole building cannot be a restaurant, otherwise you're right.
Oh, yeah, you'd just be
Yeah.
creating a disaster.
Yeah.
Obviously, you guys have done a good job of trying to get, you know, with the compact parking and even the one little funny little spot by itself. I can tell that you've gone to great lengths trying to get as much parking in there as possible. And with a restaurant, especially when you got, you know, a group of people that all want to meet there at lunch, you get, you know, 4 or 5 cars for just one table of people, and much less your employees. So anyway, congratulations on it again, and I think you guys are heading in the right direction.
Thank you.
I think in the staff developer, didn't we look at that corner to the right for the, Mark, if you remember, wasn't that where we were talking about putting the, some sort of a,
The outdoor seating.
yeah, kind of like I mean, maybe a table and 2 benches on each side, and I think that's where the bike rack was supposed to be over there too.
Yeah, we talked about the bike rack,
Yeah.
yeah, but it,
In
yeah,
the
and
pre-
again, this is just the revision 1 site plan set, so but it should have gotten picked up in the subject twos, obviously.
Yeah, well, if I remember correctly, that's where we discussed that in the staff developer, was that corner right there. It's just a grass area, if I'm not mistaken, and that'd be a perfect.
Yeah,
The only thing they are, like I mentioned earlier, they're close on their 70% coverage. So let's say we're going to reduce the building size a little bit, which maybe is an option. I do think if they're potentially looking at a restaurant, having some outdoor seating is a really marketable thing, a valuable thing. And we've seen that a lot, unfortunately, with people that have signed leases and only to find out that they really couldn't get the outdoor seating that they wanted or any at all.
Well, they end up wanting to put it on the sidewalk and.
Yeah, and then that's a problem. So
Yeah.
it's just trying to think ahead with that is all we're trying to do there.
So as far as item 4, subject to item 4, do we leave it in or take it out?
Mark, can you remind us, have we actually codified that rule that we require the outdoor seating?
No, it's not required. It's just that whenever
Okay.
we had our discussion with them about a restaurant, we just know at the staff level, what we've had to deal with having to be the bad guy, you know, because they didn't design something on the front end to address what became, you know, a nice restaurant location. You know,
Right.
but it just wasn't thought about on the front end. Jet's Pizza is a great example of that. That's why they don't have outdoor seating, is because that center crammed everything they could on there and didn't have any space left. And so unfortunately, and I wish they had it. I mean, it'd be a great thing. But, you know, they just don't with the current regulations unless we wanted to revisit that.
Well, I mean, we can't revisit
I
it
mean,
for
not
this
as
particular
part of
applicant.
this,
But
yeah, right.
I guess to address the applicant, we're kind of recommending this. We can't,
Understood.
yeah, we can't,
Why don't we just
So
amend
what-
the language in the subject to say to please consider,
Okay.
instead of, don't say please consider planning for and showing a designated outdoor seating. That's, just amend that language.
I agree, that's what I was gonna suggest.
It's kind of like putting may in instead of shall.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and, you know, if the client finds a tenant beforehand, then we can make adjustments before we submit for permit and stuff. So, you know, and the other side of the coin is, where is the restaurant really going? You know, if I put seating all the way off to the side and they're on the other end cap.
Well, yeah, that doesn't make sense.
So,
Well, it's certainly you're gonna have to, at some point, you're gonna say, what's the logical place to put a restaurant if a restaurant's gonna come in? Because you're gonna have to plan for the grease trap anyway. So, that's gonna have to be a decision that's made beforehand. Do you want a restaurant? Are you actively seeking to have at least one restaurant in your mix of tenants?
but the grease
Yeah.
trap can also be set up for the farthest
That's
point.
true, yeah.
So any of the spaces, if it's a Subway or whatever that wants to go in the middle because they just want a small space,
Yeah.
that would work too. So there's a lot of different factors that can play in, and
I'm gonna take a stab at a motion here to approve the site plan for Lakes Edge Retail Center, subject to items 1 through, actually 13. The new items number 12 is the erosion control letter, and then item number 13 is the bike rack. And then substituting or inserting the word in the subject to number 4 is, please consider planning for outdoor seating instead of please plan. Is that clear as mud?
You got that, Mark?
Down there?
Okay.
Second that.
All right. Any further comments or questions? Okay, John?
In the agenda here, it says, the building is 6,981 square feet with roughly 3,839 square feet envisioned for a restaurant. I'm trying to figure out where that 3,839 square feet came up, because it doesn't, it's not the sum of any of the areas that are available.
that was my,
Still not on. There you go.
that was my comment of, we determined how much of the building could possibly be an assembly or restaurant area. So the restaurants can't exceed that square footage to allow for parking counts that we have. It's not like it's a definite, it's just because it's been mentioned, we didn't want to assume that we'd have enough parking for whatever goes into this building. I wanted to define to you and to the client that only that amount of square footage could be used for a restaurant based on the parking count that I have. No, it does not.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Any other comments or questions? If not, everybody in favor of the motion, say yes.
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 Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
No, you can have your samples.
Yeah.
Mark doesn't want to collect samples anymore.
All right, let's see, where are we? We are on discussion item 5A. Discussion on a request to rezone partial 05501, tax map 152, and partial 055, tax map 152, 12232 Turkey Creek Road from agricultural A to general single-family residential R2. Midtown Legal applicant.
Yeah, this is an item that we talked about more broadly before the July 17th Planning Commission meeting, and it involves a single parcel that was sold as part of an estate sale as two separate tracts, although they weren't legally subdivided. So from a town's perspective and from a legal perspective, at this point, it's all considered still one parcel. The parcel is like a number of other lots along Turkey Creek Road. I think there were 16 when I looked at it a few months ago when we were preparing for this, for the workshop, original workshop, that are bisected by Turkey Creek Road. Now, on this parcel, it's different than the other parcels in the sense that the house is actually on the lake side of the parcel, and then the area that is on the non-lake portion is a larger portion of the parcel, but is currently vacant. So since two separate owners bought this parcel, the different parts of the parcel, the person that bought, the folks that bought the parcel on the non-lake side want to be able to build a house on that. And so to do that, ultimately, they would probably have to get the parcel formally subdivided through the Planning Commission. So that was the big question that was presented to you all before the July meeting. We talked about the fact that the parcel right now and the surrounding parcels actually are kind of remnants of the old zoning map. They're all zoned agricultural out there. Even though this parcel is, the largest portion, the part that's not on the lake is a little over 20,000 square feet. The lakeside portion of this is only 9,400 square feet. The agricultural zoning district requires a 5-acre minimum lot size. It also has a 50-foot front setback. It has 35-foot side setbacks and a 25-foot, 25-foot side setbacks and 35-foot rear setbacks. So it really, with the current zoning, to try to subdivide that, you would be making that non-conforming condition even more non-conforming because the tract would be even smaller in the agricultural zone. So one of the things that the staff and the town attorney, in talking with the applicant's attorney on this, is that they maybe should consider doing is trying to lessen the amount of variances that might be needed because the lot size and the setbacks are in the zoning ordinance. So varying from those has to go through the Board of Zoning Appeals. So if you could rezone the parcel from agricultural to what we suggested, general single-family residential, because that's what the area to the east where Brixworth is located is zoned, that would lessen the amount of variances if you went to the Board of Zoning Appeals to only one, and that would be the lot size of the lake portion of this parcel. It would still be less than 15,000 square feet, which is the minimum lot size in R2. So it would bring this condition much greater into compliance should this ultimately go to the Board of Zoning Appeals. So the thing that we recommended as a first step was to try to rezone it, and that's what they're here for tonight. They've applied for that. We finally made contact with the person that bought the lake portion. I think that's part of why it's taken so long to get back here. And he's okay with rezoning it. He understands that that actually makes that area more compliant. Although there's really not much you can do with that because it's a very small piece of property, and it's probably all that you have there is probably all you're going to get. But he does understand that and is okay with the rezoning request. And because we recognize it as one parcel, it really needs to get the, approval of both of those property owners now, so that when we move forward, that is something that is not going to be an issue. So this is for discussion purposes tonight because it is a rezoning request, and we weren't sure at the time if the person that bought the lakeside portion was okay with the rezoning, but as of a few days ago, he is. So the staff ultimately would recommend approval of this when it does come before you as an ordinance and a zoning map amendment.
All right. Give us your name and,
My name's Dave Hall. I work for
Okay.
Midtown Legal. I represent the owners of the non-lakeside portion, Dustin April Anderson, and also for the limited purposes of this evening, I represent Alex Bodazat. And I'm authorized to speak on his behalf and to express, as Mark said, his approval of the moving forward with rezoning his parcel as well.
Lakeside property owner, is that who he,
Correct.
does he live here?
Yes.
any other comments or questions from commissioners? Do we have any citizens signed up? Oh, I'm sorry.
I have a question. That small piece along the lake, wasn't that originally property out which is covered by water right now?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand you.
I think the property where that skinny part is,
Yes.
didn't originally, before the area with that lake was flooded, wasn't that underneath that, didn't that extend out in there?
Not all of it. I mean, I've looked at aerial footage going back almost 100 years. And there's been land there. It's hard to tell in some of the older photos, how far exactly, but I don't think the entire thing was ever underwater.
Okay.
How long has that house been there?
At least 30 years.
At least since '85.
And the driving factor here is that the pie-shaped property, you can't build on it now because there's already one building on the property and it's one title.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
Exactly that.
Mark, did you say we had any citizens?
No, there have been no citizens sign up for this.
Okay, well, if there are no other questions or comments, I guess we just have to wait and see when it comes before us for.
Yeah, I'll have this before you for next month for a recommendation to the board.
Okay.
You okay?
Yeah, I'd like to see how it's all worked out
Yeah.
with the law end of it, because that's important.
All right.
I'll let everyone know, this was all, I think, zoned agricultural before the town was founded. I don't know how this all ended up being subdivided, but Knox County allows for as low as 1 acre lots for a house to be on. So that would explain some of the other lots, but this one's still at 29,000 isn't a full acre. But that kind of is another piece of the puzzle because of that history. And it sounds like when the town was founded, we didn't know what to do with it, so we just left it agricultural.
Okay, thank you. All righty. All right, next item, discussion item on a request to amend the Farragut Code of Ordinances, Appendix A zoning, Chapter 3, Section 17, Office District 01, as it may apply to interactive sports analysis services, being a permitted use and to include a definition for interactive sports analysis services in Chapter 2 of the zoning ordinance. Christian Miller, applicant.
Mr. Chairman, before we get started, I have a disclosure I'd like to make. Mr. Miller is a potential tenant of mine, and I will be recusing myself from the discussion and the subsequent vote on this particular item.
Thank you, Alderman Myers.
Okay, yeah, a little bit of background to this. This is a little bit unusual. The applicant has an interest in a space that's currently zoned office, And the type of use that he has is, it was created out and originally founded out in California, and it's from a entity called Golf Envy. I don't know if any of y'all have checked that out on the website. It's pretty cool. But I guess we're classifying it as an interactive sports analysis service. So when we looked at this at the staff level with the applicant, we really we didn't feel like this was cleanly provided for in the office zone currently. The office zone is intended to have really low impact uses because the office district often is a transitional zone between commercial and residential. So the types of uses that you have in office are like I said, really kind of low impact, wouldn't bother a residential setting and those kinds of things. So this particular use, although it's golf-based, obviously, is a member-only, appointment-only, indoor golf practice and play simulation experience. You basically bring your golf clubs in, and you can simulate playing different golf courses, and Christian can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not an expert on this, because heaven forbid I'm not an expert at golf, that's for sure. But I'd probably be safe inside at least, maybe not harming anyone in there. But, you know, we looked at this, and yeah, this applies to golf, but this kind of technology could also apply to other sports activities and maybe other activities. I can't think of anything outside of sports. The closest thing that it would be related to that is a permitted use right now is professional services, but we just didn't feel like the way professional services was currently worded, it didn't cleanly account for this. And the Board of Zoning Appeals can make interpretations on these things when it's a little bit of a gray area, but the cleanest thing to do, especially if you have a new type of use that you know, you're seeing in the market that maybe wasn't even on the radar screen when the zoning ordinance language was created, the best thing to do is just to go ahead and cleanly provide for that and maybe establish some parameters around that so that it is consistent with other uses in the office zoning district in terms of its potential impact. So that's really the question, is, you know, whether the use proposed is similar in nature and its effect to other uses allowed in the office zone. The way that this has kind of been approached for this particular entity, and it again could apply to any sport potentially. We talked about this at the staff developer meeting on November 4th with the applicant. We felt like it was a generally compatible use because it is a membership-based. You have to schedule an appointment to come by. It's not just open to the general public and people can walk in. And this particular request, they're also, the applicant is limiting the space devoted to this use to 3,500 gross square feet. And then the other thing that we talked about is that there could be a noise impact to some of these uses if you're in a tenant building, you have adjacent tenants. So one of the things to, in addition to having the definition in Chapter 2, and that's just a sample definition there, is in the office zone itself to kind of build in some of those parameters. We're talking about the tenant space not exceeding 3,500 gross square feet, and that kind of limits the scale of it. You're not including the sale of retail goods, food, or alcohol, and then limit any noise associated with such use so that it is contained within the space with noise proofing measures that would be reflected on tenant space completion plans. So that way we're actually looking at it when somebody comes in to finish out a tenant space. You know, you got this use, you know, how are you going to control the noise in that space so that it's not a nuisance to adjacent tenants? So that's kind of an overview of this. Again, it's a use that I'd never even heard of, frankly. But I think it's, you know, a good use, and it's something that would be a nice addition to the town. But if y'all have any questions for me, or the applicant is here, we'd be happy to try to answer those.
I'm going to compliment, first of all, I am a golfer, and I've used this type of equipment for years. But in your application to amend the text, you haven't anything in there about the noise problem. He's got it up here in his language, but in your 3-page application for amending the text, you haven't noted that.
Yeah, so that was never really anything that occurred to me as far as the noise.
Just get your name and address and everything.
Christian Miller. So that wasn't really anything that occurred to me due to the soundproofing technology that's used in all the bays. So each bay is almost fully enclosed. It's enclosed on 3 sides. And then you have soundproofing all throughout the bay and then on the ceiling of the bay as well. And so from the other places and other spots that this has been at, we haven't heard of any noise complaints or any of that. So it didn't occur to me to put that into my initial application. You know, we discussed it at the meeting, so.
Well, down the road, if there's some other business that comes along with a noise issue, I think we have to have some type of language in there,
I
in my
totally agree.
opinion.
Sounds like he was already accommodating for that, so it didn't sound like he was accommodating it in his business. So it didn't even occur to you because it comes as part of the business. From our perspective, this is going to apply for more than just.
Yes.
But don't we have a baseball training thing over there we used to have one, I don't know if it's still there.
It's not there anymore.
But they used to, that was indoor, that
It's
not?
probably zone commercial too, though.
Oh, okay, this is
So
office, I'm sorry,
This would be
yes.
office. So
Okay,
again,
yeah.
be a little lower impact.
Okay. And I'm fine with that, crafting the language to just clarify that this is especially with the noise proofing, a legitimate office use as well.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to do that so that when it does go to the BZA, that they'll have a clear picture of what.
It doesn't have to go to the BZA. That's,
It would be a text amendment, so it'll just come to the board.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions from commissioners? Do you have anything else you want to say?
I don't think so this time. I mean, I'm really excited to work with y'all, and I appreciate the opportunity to come in here and talk with you guys. Thank you.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank
You got what you need, Mark?
Yeah, we'll plan to put this on the agenda for recommendation in
Okay.
December. So,
All right, approval of utilities. Mark, anything?
There are none. There are none on the agenda. None who applied for, no.
Any citizens forum?
I have none.
None? All right, the time is approximately 7:15. We are adjourned.